Good afternoon, Board of Directors for LAYC. We're team 3.5, and today we're here to talk about you. You obviously know your mission very well, and you embody it. And what it's shown us is you have a passion for empowering youth and helping them in their transition into adulthood. And as we did research and talked more and more, we found out that you're not alone. There's others that share in this passion with you. And there's nothing to lose by connecting to these people and these organizations. And as Bobby here is going to take us through, it shows that there's a whole lot to gain by connecting and helping each other out.
Yes, so in order to make this connection, in order to help each other out in the large not-for-profit world that is the DC area, we've identified a main challenge that LAYC is facing. That is undiversified revenues. A lot of the money that comes into LAYC is tied up in government, grants. So the solution we see to this is taking one of the greatest opportunities you have, which is one of your greatest strengths, in your PYD framework. This can be a revenue generator, and not only a revenue generator, but a method in which to help more people. So once the organization has more money, we see an opportunity to streamline volunteer structure and make it easier for people to sign up with an overarching impact of free money to pursue goals, restructuring, expansion, and helping more people. And this leads to real, tangible results. That being about just under $375,000 in net income over 4 years, 70 not-for-profits helped, a volunteer coordinator hired, which is a job fulfilled for someone who needs it, and just over 90 youths' lives changed.
So where are we right now? Right now in the company, over 70% of the funds coming in are tied up from government. And where would we like to be? The goal is to get more revenue coming in that is unrestricted. Right now, there are 3 key areas that are strengths right now within LAYC's organization. The first is that there's a strong, positive youth development program that other organizations could benefit from to help more people. Secondly, you have knowledgeable and devoted employees. These people are ones who feel compassionate about where they work, and they have their own salsa. And lastly, your not-for-profit is different than other not-for-profits because you see the value in data gathering, and that is something that sets you apart.
So what is the key takeaway here? The key takeaway is that LAYC has unique and diversified strengths that they can use to create an unrestricted revenue stream using their successful current PYD framework.
Now that we've gone over the strengths of the organization, we need to, and these strengths, they're excellent and they're strong. However, we need to take a look at the market to see if there is actually a place for this training. And we have identified there is. In the DC area alone, there's over 13,000 not-for-profits registered. And to make this a little more digestible, we've identified 40 key not-for-profits that deal with youth in any way, shape, or form, be that families, anyway. And we drilled that down even more to 29 not-for-profits that specialize in interacting with youth. And of those 29, 10 are younger than 10 years, large and able to, and because they're younger, they could stand to benefit from the training that the PYD program can offer. There is an immediate market, and they're easy to contact. So, with an immediate market is excellent, however, sustainability is key. In the past 3 years, we found an average of 3% growth in the number of not-for-profits registered in the DC area. This amounts to approximately 300 new not-for-profits registered every year. So not only is there an immediate market, but there's one that is growing and sustainable.
All of this knowledge and apply it to the 2 challenges you posed to us and asked for help with. We're going to go over both, but we're going to start with an undiversified revenue stream. And we believe that the solution to this is taking your really strong PYD program and turning that into a revenue generating project. And how to do this, we're going to take you through the first step being assemble a consulting team, the second being helping that team sell the consulting services, and thirdly, take you through an execution timeline that'll help you ensure a standard of quality every time you help a client out.
So essentially, the implementation that we're bringing you today is called a recipe for success. And I will now move into the first phase of this implementation. And that will be assembling a team for Cultura Consulting. So this will consist of 3 employees which you will first try to source internally as you have strong training development systems already set in place. If internally is unsuccessful, you can then seek external sources of staffing this program. And we recommend that you have staff in place in the next 4 months. So now you have individuals who can carry out this consulting service. However, how do you identify the organizations that you can provide this service to? Well, that moves us into how you are going to sell it. And we've identified that you have a strong associate board that is great at executing relationship management with donors. They have the viable skills to market this value proposition to other nonprofits in the DC area and ultimately pitch the PYD framework to those carefully selected nonprofits and bring in clients. So now we have the consultants that will deliver the service, as well as organizations to deliver the service to. But now what does the specific interaction look like? Well, we will go through a timeline to clear things up. So the first phase of your interaction with the client will occur in weeks 1 and 2, and we call this researching the salsa. This is where you will sit down with those key members of that organization, and you will identify their communication culture. What makes them different? What's their competitive advantage? That will move us into phase 2, where you will develop the recipe. This is where you will tailor that successful 7-module framework to their specific communication culture, organization, and clients that they are serving. And phase 3, which will occur in the 4th week, is what we call Pass the Salsa. This is when you will run that training program that's similar to what you've done in your own organization, except it will be tailored to their specific communication needs. Following the service that you provide, you will do the taste test in the month following. And these are quality assurance checks, so you will sit down and get feedback from the organizations that you have already helped and ensure that the goals that you've set up in the 7th module of the framework are indeed being successful for that organization itself. And something that will be ongoing throughout this entire process is ongoing improvement. You will take that feedback into consideration to improve the process for your following clients in the future.
Okay, so what does this mean to you in the long term? Well, first of all, now you have an unrestricted revenue stream. And you've mentioned 2 projects that you really wanted to invest in and expand. That being the best practices replication unit and the promoter's pathway. You mentioned wanting to take that into national expansion. And this sets you up to be able to generate revenue and expand on these projects as well as many others that mimic the same need. Because other communities outside of DC will require and benefit greatly from these projects. So, moving into volunteer structure. We believe there's a very simple way to solve this. That being streamlining the sign up and helping out with the management of volunteers.
So very quickly, we're going to walk you through the very easy implementation of streamlining the sign up and management system. Firstly, we would like to organize the volunteers by levels of screening. And then secondly, it would be streamline the sign up online on an online database that would cost approximately $1,000. And thirdly would be to hire a part-time volunteer coordinator. So, with the organization of volunteer structure, we would like 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 would be general volunteers who do not have face-to-face contact with youth. These people would not need background checks. Level 2 would have to have passed the clearance standards, and those would include people who do the tutoring and the one-to-one interaction. And then level 3 would be the volunteers who have done level 2 activities in the past, but showed more interest in becoming workshop mentors or part of the planning process.
Okay. So, now with this in mind, you're able to contact a company to develop your website. And this website will essentially just be a website upgrade which will allow volunteers to create a sign-up page and easily partition themselves into level 1 or level 2. And as you'll see here, this is just an example calendar. They'll be able to easily click on, they'll be able to see a color code which will denote what level is available to them. And if they're level 1, they'll be able to sign up for the level 1 relevant events. And what this essentially does for you is takes a lot of the time off of your staff's hands and lets the volunteers sign up for themselves. No more email chains, no more going back and forth.
So finally, it is important to hire a part-time volunteer coordinator in the first 3 years, and then we feel in the 4th year, if it is needed, to have a full-time volunteer coordinator. The aspects of this.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Can you go back to the slide regarding the market identification? I was looking at that. First of all, I appreciate that you tried to do the market analysis because not all groups did that. Although what you identified, it seems to be pretty small. You're saying there's 10 small nonprofits that focus in youth development in the local area. And you're talking about making a pretty big investment in launching a new consulting practice or business. So is that market large enough, in your opinions, to sustain that?
Yes, I'll answer your question, and I do believe it is. And the reason we decided to drill it down like this was we saw that there, with over 13,000, that's quite a large amount of not-for-profits. So to start a new initiative like this, you need to be targeted in the way that you approach things. So we decided to drill down into those 10 ones that are younger than 10 years. Can you please go to slide 48, please? So this here is the list of the not-for-profits we mentioned in slide, the not-for-profits we mentioned that are larger, more easier to access not-for-profits. So why we recommend to focus on these ones right off the bat, starting a new initiative, is that if you target these larger ones, then the smaller not-for-profits that are just getting off their feet will notice. And then you'll be able to expand further from there. However, we see this as an excellent jumping point to start out a new branch of the not-for-profit, because with any new initiative, you'll have to have a starting point somewhere.
You talked about hiring 3 staff for the consulting company. First will be the cost on that, and secondly, how would you integrate those folks currently into the staff already as you're bringing in new folks? You'll have a challenge in doing that. What are your thoughts around that?
I'll be able to take you through the integration, and Lauren here will deal with the financial aspect. Essentially, we see you as having an amazing training program. You already go through the steps of job shadowing, and then you go through a bit of a mentoring phase where people go through the training process when they're training someone else. This is getting complicated. Trainers training trainers. And then there's a quality check period. So we see, so long as you keep up your current standards, there shouldn't be any problems with culture integration, with the quality involved with these additional staff members.
Could you please go to slide 34, please, Michael? There we go. So we have our 4-year projected impact that we just didn't get to because of time. But what we have considered is hiring the volunteer. We have, if you notice below, the net income in the middle of the screen. So we broke it down at $13,000 for the cost of the PYD session for 15 people. I can further break that down and do a comparison. But I would just like to show that the hiring the volunteer would be covered in the first year, and there would actually be, with the hiring of the volunteer plus the website, of $1,000. There's $26,000 left over, and we just put that money towards general services, or if you so choose, put it towards the promotor plan. Could you please go to slide 54, please? Okay, so this is how I got the breakdown of the PYD costs. So I took the costs from supplies and food that was provided in the case. Then I did the salaries per trainers. So I know that the session is 42 hours, and we allowed 80 hours of at least time for preparation and then the taste tests that Alex was talking about afterwards. So, and that we accounted it for 3 people at $25 per hour because we took the average salary from your company. So with that, we get a total cost for PYD session of $7,600, and we felt that we could charge a PYD fee of $13,000. Could you please go to the next slide? The reason why we felt that a fee of $13,000 was because we compared it to the market. So in the market, there is a different organization called Society for Nonprofits. This also does training sessions and does volunteer management and leadership workshops. So with that, they charge a total session fee of $1,400 per one person. And per hour, there's only 16 hours. So that rate per hour per person comes to $87.50. Whereas with your organization, with the positive youth development, if you charge approximately $13,000 for 15 people for 42 hours, that's a rate of $20.64 per hour per person. And that does not include the 80 hours on top that you would also be providing people with the research for their business and the checking up with them afterwards. So we feel that that rate is very viable and would be very attractive to the market. And that is why we feel that we can bring on this extra volunteer coordinator, to just streamline the volunteer process, because that is something we can do in the short term economically.
Thank you for those answers.
If we could actually go back to that slide, in doing your research, when you're looking at the Society for Nonprofits, what does their session entail for that $1,400? Is that also focused on youth development, or is that just a general kind of course?
For sure. So can I, 36, or 56, sorry. Oh, no, 55, sorry, my apologies. Okay, so the Society for Not-for-Profits, it is in the DC area, so that's why we felt it was quite comparable. As well, it is a government organization, so we also thought that that was comparable. This is the one that we compared it to it was like modules. So they had different parts within their modules. So they had leadership, development, teamwork training, and different things like that. And we felt that probably within your own salsa, those are things that you would want to be expanding. So that's why we thought that it was comparable. The thing with that, though, is it is an online training. So that is also something that you guys bring that is different, that it is not an online training, it is actually face-to-face communication.
Thank you.
I may have missed it, but can we go back to the decision to use Cultura Consulting versus kind of resurrecting the in-house consulting that they already had, if I'm not mistaken? Or are you just talking about renaming it? So where does Cultura come from?
I'm sorry, just to gain clarification on your question, are you asking between the contract between Impacto Consulting
Yes.
and Cultura Consulting?
Right.
Excellent. Robin can take us through a great comparison between those two different programs.
Yes, absolutely. Can you go to slide 64, please? One more, sorry. Perfect. So we did actually consider that. When we were creating the idea for Cultura Consulting, we realized that Impacto had been tried in the past and it didn't take off. So in hearing from some individuals from LAYC, we learned that Impacto was in fact just simply an idea. It didn't take off because there wasn't that foundation framework behind it to really take it off. So the key difference between Impacto and Cultura is Impacto was an idea, didn't quite take off because there wasn't the resources to do so. But now that LAYC has the key strength that is the positive youth development framework, they now have the toolkit to go into a consulting session and apply that framework to the client. Whereas beforehand, they didn't have that toolkit. So those skills and also the cultural integration are really what sets Cultura apart from the previous idea that was Impacto.
If there are no further questions at this time, we will open it up for your 5-minute concluding remarks.
To conclude, our recommendation identifies the key challenge that is facing LAYC right now, and that is an undiversified revenue stream, mainly revenues associated with government grants, ties up money. So to solve this, we identified a massive opportunity and strength that is in LAYC. And that is the positive youth development framework that you've developed to train your internal employees. It's seen great success and has really set LAYC as a leader in the not-for-profit world for working with youth. So we see this as a two-prong opportunity. One, revenue can be generated through sharing this expertise with other not-for-profits. Two, the impact that LAYC has can now be exponential, because not only are you directly helping youth, you are helping other organizations help youth. So with this free revenue, we recommend that you use that free revenue to streamline the volunteer sign-up and management in a way to simply upgrade simple upgrades to your website, as we elaborated on. That impact is more revenue for goals, restructuring, and expansion, with an overall summary that ties back to LAYC has the opportunity to open up a diverse revenue stream by taking their expertise in youth to other organizations to not only create free revenue, but also help exponential amounts of youth where they couldn't before.
So we have outlined how you can achieve this impact, and that is through turning the PYD into an unrestricted revenue generator. And to reiterate how this process is going to work, we will first recommend that you assemble a team. So that's the 3 employees for the Cultura consulting team. Next, you will sell those consulting services to the nonprofits that we have outlined for you in our appendix slides. And thirdly, you will tailor your PYD framework individually to their organization, which provides you a great competitive advantage on the market as you are developing a training program around them. You are taking into account their communication processes and their specific salsa when you run their training programs.
Now that we've touched again on our actual implementation and how we recommend you go forward, it's crucial that we touch back on the tangible things that you'll see from implementing our recommendation. And of course, that is just under $375,000 in net income over 4 years. 70 other non-for-profit organizations in the DC area helped. A volunteer coordinator position created, which is a job that someone needs. And just over 90 youth lives changed over 4 years, which goes back to your mission of changing youth lives around the DC area.
So we have outlined these tangible outcomes in the next 4 years. However, what does this mean for your organization on the long term? Well, it would allow you to funnel all of this extra revenue into programs like the Promotor Pathway that is going to give you an international reach across the United States of America that will allow you to do what you do best on an international level. So, to conclude, my colleagues and myself truly believe that the implementation that we brought to you today can be best summarized by this diagram here. So the increased revenue through the Positive Youth Development Program will indirectly impact youth, as you will help other organizations to best impact the clients that they are serving. You will help them create more meaningful impact in their own communities. So this increased revenue through the PYD will also bring in money for your own services. This directly impacts youth, as it will allow you to create more impact out of your own services itself. Also, this increased revenue through the PYD will allow you to increase LAYC on an international level and do what you do best across the United States of America. However, the most important thing that we brought to you today perhaps wasn't our financial statements, and it wasn't the logistics behind our operational plan. However, it was something much more important. And it was the toolkit that will allow you to directly change lives. On behalf of Team 3.5, I would like to thank you very much for your attention today, and I would like to wish you luck in your organization's future. Thank you.